When The Magnificent Seven arrived in theaters in 1960, it didn't announce itself as a revolution. It didn't need to. There was something in the air, something unspoken, something you could feel before the first gun was drawn or the first word was spoken. A quiet intensity that promised this was not just another Western. And as the screen came alive, audiences quickly realized they were witnessing something rare, something that would not fade with time but instead grow stronger with every passing decade. Because what unfolded was more than a story. Of hired gunmen protecting a desperate village, it was the convergence of 7 powerful screen presences, each carrying their own weight, their own identity, their own silent storm, and together they created something almost impossible to replicate. At the center stood Chris Adams, a figure of pure authority, calm and commanding. The kind of man who didn't chase respect, but naturally possessed it, his presence alone enough to steady chaos. And right beside him, like a spark ready to ignite, was Vin Tanner, whose restless energy gave the film its pulse. A man who seemed unpredictable yet deeply loyal, turning even the smallest gestures into moments that lingered in the mind. Then came Bernardo O'Reilly, carrying a quiet, almost haunting strength. The kind of man who had seen too much and said too little, whose pain translated into purpose, making every action feel deeply personal. While Britt brought something colder, something sharper, a calm that wasn't peaceful but dangerous, the kind that suggested he was always in control, even when everything else wasn't. Lee added complexity, portraying a man who understood fear more than most, yet chose to stand anyway, reminding us that bravery is not about being fearless, but about moving forward despite fear. While Harry Luck grounded the group with his toughness, a steady force that held everything together, and Chico injected youthful fire, ambition, and a hunger to prove himself in a world that offered no guarantees. And as these 7 men came together, something extraordinary happened, something beyond acting, beyond performance. They became a unit, a brotherhood forged not through words but through shared purpose, shared danger, and shared understanding. The story itself was simple on the surface. Small village terrorized by bandits seeks protection, hiring 7 gunfighters who have little to gain and everything to lose, but beneath that simplicity lay something deeper, something that spoke to universal truths about honor, sacrifice, and identity, about what it means to stand for something, even when the odds are against you. And it is within that simplicity that the film found its strength, because it allowed the characters, the atmosphere, and the unspoken tension to take center stage. There were no unnecessary distractions, no over-explained motivations, just moments, pure. Powerful moments where a glance could reveal more than pages of dialogue, where silence carried weight, where every pause felt intentional, drawing the audience deeper into the story without ever forcing it. And as the narrative unfolded, the bond between the 7 men grew stronger, not through grand speeches, but through actions, through choices, through the quiet understanding that they were all walking the same path, one that might not lead them back. Each character brought their own perspective, creating a dynamic that felt authentic and layered, allowing the audience to connect with them not as distant heroes but as flawed human individuals. And that is what set this film apart. It didn't rely on spectacle alone. It relied on character, on presence, on the chemistry between its cast, something that cannot be manufactured or forced. As the tension built and the confrontation approached, the film transformed into something almost poetic, a reflection on mortality, on legacy, on the choices that define us. And when the moment of truth finally arrived, it wasn't just about survival. It was about meaning, about what these men stood for, about what they were willing to give up for something greater than themselves. And when the dust settled, when the echoes of gunfire faded into silence, what remained was not just the outcome of a battle, but the emotional imprint of a journey. The image of 7 men who had become more than individuals. They had become symbols, representations of courage, loyalty, and sacrifice. And that is why, even today, more than 60 years later, this film continues to resonate, continues to captivate new generations, because it speaks to something timeless, something deeply human, something that transcends the boundaries of genre and era. It reminds us of a time when storytelling trusted its audience, when performances were defined by restraint, and when silence could be just as powerful as action. The legacy of the Magnificent Seven is not just in its success, but in its ability to endure, to remain relevant, to continue inspiring filmmakers and audiences, proving that true greatness is measured by the emotional impact it leaves behind. These 7 men did not just create a film, they created a moment, a piece of history that refuses to fade. A reminder of what cinema can achieve when everything comes together in perfect harmony. And perhaps that is the most remarkable part of all, that something so simple, so grounded, could become something so legendary, something that continues to live on in the hearts of millions. Because in the end, it was never just about 7 gunfighters riding into danger. It was about 7 souls coming together to create something unforgettable, something timeless, something immortal. And that is why you are not just remembering a film, you're witnessing a legend, one that will never ride out of our hearts. Because some stories are not meant to fade. They are meant to endure, to echo, to remind us of what true storytelling looks like.